All right, well, I guess I will call the meeting to order, and somebody want to do roll call for us?
Melissa,
Here.
Shannon,
Hey,
Here.
Larry,
here.
Matthew,
Here.
Joyce, and Casey.
Yes.
All right. Minutes from last meeting. We had a chance to look at them. Any comments or anything, any corrections needed from what you can see? If not, would ask for a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Okay. Is there a second? Even if you weren't here?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand, one or both or whatever. Thank you. All right. Public comments. I don't see anybody. Do you see anybody?
I see one person
Okay.
or a group of people maybe. There is a raise hand button on the bottom of your screen if you're wanting to make public comment. It's not necessary, but we leave it open. So if you do, feel free to click that raise hand. If not, we'll move on forward. I'll give it a few seconds just to make sure.
I think Mr. Chair Shannon might have a couple of comments.
Okay.
So I have moved out of Newberg, and so I sent a PDF to the city, to Doug and Mary, but I have to resign the committee. And so this will be my last meeting. I'm actually gonna get off of here real soon. So I'm sorry to leave you guys, but it has been a pleasure. And I put in my resignation just that, you know, I loved being a part of affordable housing, trying to find solutions. Know that you guys will continue to do that. I also sent props to Doug because he's an amazing community development director. So, but yeah, so I wish you everybody the best. So.
Well, thanks, Shannon. I know I've enjoyed working with you both in Habitat Board and here, and appreciated you a lot. And so I wish you the best. Yeah, we will miss you.
Thank you. Same. Yeah.
Yes, from staff, thank you very much. Much appreciated over the years.
Yeah.
And stay in touch.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll be signing off though. So.
Okay. Thanks, Shannon.
I'll see you guys. Bye.
All right. Anybody raising their hand?
Nope. So I
All
think
right,
we're good to go.
Move on. Let's move to the 22-23 notice of funding availability application draft construction excise tax fund.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay, can you all see a presentation of sorts? Okay, cool. Let me see if I can make it look better. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go over a couple of things with you all today. First being the construction excise tax selection criteria discussion, which is a continued discussion from last time. And then just a really quick update on the notice of funding for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So those are the two things we'll talk about today. So I know we have we have one new person, maybe a couple in general on the call in total, but I'll do a quick brief background of the construction excise tax before we get into some of the things that I want to discuss with you all about the criteria. But the construction excise tax was adopted by the city of Newberg in December of 2020. It's a 1% tax on building permit value. And the goal for this tax is to be used for housing affordability. And that can be for homeowners, renters, and basically any individuals or families that earn 80% or less of the median family income. So the goal is that these funds from the tax are going to be used to help people that are struggling with housing affordability in Newberg. So the funds are collected. This is all based on state statutes. So if cities choose to have a construction excise tax, this is kind of how it's supposed to work per state statutes. Funds from residential improvements, so residential building permits, 4% goes to admin costs to run everything. 50% of those funds can be used for developer incentives, and I'll go into what those mean. 15% goes to the State Department of the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department to help with their homeownership programs and down payment assistance programs. And then 35% will fund developers incentives and affordable housing programs. And I'll again explain what those means. And then Newberg also chose to collect funds from commercial, industrial, and mixed use building permit properties. And 100% of those revenues from those taxes will be going towards affordable housing programs and developer incentives. So what does it mean when I say developer incentives and affordable housing programs? So developers incentives typically mean things like it could pay towards system development charges. It could pay for land acquisition, local public improvements, things that a developer of property would have to pay, or else they could use these construction excise tax funds to kind of lower their cost as they develop, which can be really, really important for some projects. And then affordable housing programs are usually kind of actual like programs that people use, usually nonprofits, to help with rent buy down and subsidies, down payment assistance, and foreclosure prevention assistance. So these are just examples. They aren't limited to some of these things, but that's kind of what that means when we say like 50% of the revenues goes towards developer incentives. That's what that means here. So what this means is the goal for this construction excise tax fund essentially is we're going to use the funds for projects that address housing affordability for homeowners, renters, individuals, families that earn 80% or less of median family income. And per the ordinance that was approved by City of Newberg, it also must remain at 80% median family income or below for a period of 60 years or more. So that means if a developer chooses to build and part of their units or all of their units are considered affordable at the 80% or below, it has to be for a period of 60 years or more. So the goal is to have affordable housing that will stay affordable for quite a long period of time. And again, some examples of how people could use these funds is they could use to help them lower their system development charges or pay for them. And that could be used for, say, a multifamily affordable housing project. They could be used towards street frontage improvements, which can also be a big cost for development. Or it could also be used for local organizations' rental assistance programs. So there's a lot of variety of ways that these funds could be used, which is great because the more flexibility, the more likely we can help a variety of projects. Any questions on any of this so far? Nope. Okay, great. So the main things that I want to talk to you all about is, and this is going to look kind of familiar because I copied a lot of this from our Affordable Housing Trust Fund application, but I want to talk about some of the minimum threshold and then selection criteria that would be part of the application for CET funds. And I've highlighted in yellow here where it varies from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So it kind of highlights that a little bit more. Again, these are minimum thresholds. So a project would have to meet this to even qualify for these funds. So at the top there, It just lists that it has to be for a period of 60 years following the date of construction. That's in the ordinance, so we have to adhere to that. The number 2 talks about documentation to demonstrate financial feasibility. I believe this was a conversation that we had last time, wanting to make sure that we have projects that are kind of ready to go once they get the funds. And so they would show as part of their application that with these funds, they'll be kind of ready to get started pretty quickly. And then 3 and 4 are the same as we have for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Nothing's changed there. Again, it's just talking about if you're acquisition of property, make sure you're meeting all of the requirements for that. And then if there's relocation of existing residents, that will be minimized, and they'll be able to have assistance with that relocation if necessary. And then number 5, again, kind of goes along with that financial feasibility criteria up above, but it kind of just adds some additional language talking about how the construction excise tax fund will actually make a project feasible, meaning that without the funds, they wouldn't be able to do kind of the work that they're trying to do. And so it's just kind of showing that as part of your application. So those are the main differences here for the minimum threshold criteria. Any questions on any of this? No? Okay, great. So then the scored criteria, like with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, this is where you all have the ability to score applications based on the projects that they're proposing. So again, the highlighted yellow are where things are different from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So per our conversations last time, number 8 here, this has a particular section that just talks about if you're doing affordable housing that will help families or individuals that are at 50% or less of median family income, and that'll be up to 10 points that you can receive as a project. For number 9, the top part is similar to what we have in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but I also included the language down here per some of our discussions of wanting to make sure that we include any sort of projects that may be dealing with transitional housing or helping individuals who are houseless. And those typically are those that are at the 30% or below median family income. And again, that could earn you up to 5 points too. And then number 10 here is what we talked about last time, where wanting to give more points to projects that are close to schools, parks, commercial areas, public transportation, jobs, and show that they're using cost-effective, sustainable measures or energy efficiency standards or things like that to make a project that, one, will reduce utility costs for people. It'll also have people that are closer to the services they may need, give them more points if they're able to provide those things as part of the project. And then again, the rest is the same as what we have in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So nothing else has changed in these. Any questions on the highlighted areas?
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
So the first is, if a project gets points for number 9, do they also get the points for number 8?
Yes.
Or is it one or the other? They do?
Yeah. Or at least that's how I'm viewing it. So if that doesn't seem obvious, then maybe I can make it more clear. But yeah, so potentially a project that says they're helping transitional housing and the clients that they help are obviously below that 30% mark, they could earn up to 15 points because they would automatically get 8 and then 9 as well.
Okay. And the second question, there was minimum criteria on the previous slide. Is there a minimum score that they also have to get to be approved, or no minimum for the part?
Yeah, that's a good question. We don't have a minimum. That might be something we can discuss if that you think that would be necessary. It really is to kind of help figure out if we have multiple projects, which one might be scored higher, and therefore might want to provide more funds towards that one because it's meeting more of the goals and intentions of the program. But I don't know, we haven't had a minimum one for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and that hasn't really been an issue, but I'm happy to entertain that idea if other people think that would be necessary.
Thank you.
Well, it seems like it it mostly matters if there's multiple applications. You know, if we have to decide between applications. I mean, we may want to talk about is, you know, though a minimum as far as, you know, what, I mean, do you have to get, you know, at least 50% to really say that you qualify? Although if they qualify for all the kind of minimum standards that we have above, does that mean that they really should have a chance to get it anyway? So I guess I could go either way on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I could go either way on it. I like the idea of a minimum because then maybe we could ensure that some projects are really, you know, trying to meet these scored criteria that are ones that we want to reward better. But at the same time, there hasn't been a lot of huge take on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So it makes me worried if we add more, you know, like minimum barriers that we might not have people apply as much. And so I would only be worried about that. At least for this first year, we have options to update this every year. So if we see that that is a possibility and we need it, you know, we can change it next year. Okay.
Help me remember to, is this available anytime? Is there a window of availability? How does
I
that?
will get to that.
Okay, then
Good
go
question.
ahead with your presentation. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Good question though. So this next slide here is really just asking, one, are we missing anything? Is there anything here that we want to highlight more of, like you get more points because it's something that we really want to see from projects? Or are there any edits that you think are needed to what's already here? Happy to take any of those suggestions too. Yes,
Since you
Casey.
asked, I love all this and I'm totally content with it as is. But I was curious about number 10, if it was essential to keep those two ideas combined, or if proximity and sustainability efficiency could be two separate categories.
Yeah, I think it would depend on what you all think. I think in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, we do have one that just talks about like green energy sustainability. And that gets, I think, up to 5 points. But you're right, they are kind of two separate things a little bit here. And, you know, a project could potentially say, hey, we're adding solar panels and all of this stuff, but they may not be right next to public transportation line or something. And we, you know, may not give them the full 10 points, but we could still give them, you know, 5, 6, 7, you know, something like that. But if you think it would be easier to have it kind of split out, I'm happy to do that too. Depends on what you all want to do.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I see just there's a whole bunch of things here that I mean, I don't think we want to separate them all out. So then it's, you know, it's just these are things that, you know, we would like to encourage them to build in as many as they can. And the more they have, the more points they're going to get, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think so. And I'm also, I mean, Casey, you're newer, and I want you to be able to have any input you can on this. I'm for myself, I've had chances to weigh in on these things, and I feel like, okay, I'm going to trust staff at this point to move ahead with what we've suggested in the past. So I don't mean that in any way to shut you down. I want you to be able to consider things yourself too.
And it's easy enough for me to split it out. So it's not like, I don't think it's that big of a deal, in my opinion. I think it would actually make it more obvious that we're trying to encourage, cost-effective sustainability, energy efficiency measures if we do it separately. We may want to define better, now that I'm thinking about it, what particularly that could mean if we split it out. Sometimes it's like people require them to have a minimum of Earth Advantage standard if they're doing like a green building. It's kind of like, per building code, Oregon's building code, we kind of meet those standards anyway, but that's one that some people do. Again, I don't want to put too many like barriers or things on here so that we don't get as many applications, at least the first year, to kind of see how, what we get. But it's easy enough for me to split out the sustainability measures.
As I see it right now, how it's worth 10 points, there's almost 10 things there listed. So, I mean, it's almost like they get a point per thing. Whereas if we split it, my first thought was each category would be worth 5 points, but then that seems to be weighing more heavily on the sustainability than the proximity, because proximity has so many different categories versus the sustainability. So I don't know. I think it does seem like a different category, but at the same time, our point scale would be really skewed differently then. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Any other thoughts on this? With raise of hands if you want to keep it as it is. Okay.
I would like to keep it as is, but add green building
Sure.
measures to the wording, because I do think a developer would put that anyways, but just to be clear that they should talk about that, which they're probably doing it anyways.
Yeah. I can add that. And again, if we think, in a year's time, we want to really highlight that or boost that and score it a little bit more for sustainability, green energy stuff, we can change that too. Okay. Are we missing anything? I feel like we talked a lot last time, so I'm not sure we're missing anything, but there's something that you're like, wait, do we want to show more support for this? I don't know. Hearing none, which is fine. Again, we'll be revisiting this in a year's time too, which is nice, because sometimes these things get done and then nobody thinks about revising them, but we'll definitely be looking at it, especially after that first year, to make sure things are moving the way we intended them to.
well, and if you're gonna add the wording for the green building, does that mean we'll have to come back and look at it again and vote on it again or whatever? Or will we be able to just say, hey, when you add that, we can submit it to city council?
No, you can say we add that, and that's a part of your recommendation to city council. So you don't have to, I don't have to.
Okay, because I know that
yeah.
they're getting kind of anxious for us to actually like solidify something and present it. So
Yeah, no, it won't cause things to be slowed down. Okay. All right, then we'll move on. So this is where we get to Larry's question. So I originally in the memo had the first deadline of the 3rd of January, but doesn't quite make sense because we're hoping that we start pushing this out like the 1st of January, and then we'll only give two days for people. So I just moved it to the following year. But my goal is for every Affordable Housing Commission meeting, the applications will be due 3 weeks before. So that gives us and staff time to kind of put everything together, make sure it's in the staff reports and memos to you all. But it's also something that, you know, happens quarterly. So projects don't have to wait once a year to submit, because sometimes it can be too late because they move fast. But does this seem like an okay review timeline for you all? Okay, I'm seeing nods. Great. Okay, so the first one then we'll say is April 4th for this coming year, which again, that'll give us a lot of time to kind of hopefully get some outreach going so we can get some traction on this, and projects can apply. They'll have time, which kind of talks about my next slide here. So typically what we do is we'll do notices in the graphic newspaper. We do multiple social media posts. We'll sometimes send targeted emails out to specific organizations or developers that we know that do work that would meet some of these goals. And then obviously we make it kind of very upfront on the city's website, but I would love to query you all and figure out if there's better options, because we've had a little bit of a slow number of applications we've had some queries for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, but I would like to see maybe some more interest in this CET fund, because there's actually going to be more in it anyway, which is great. But if you all have any suggestions or ideas, especially as community members in Newberg, if there are organizations or things that we should make sure to let them know that we have this fund coming out, or if you have other ideas on how to get the word out better, I will take them.
Is there a developer, newsletter or organization that kind of, puts things out to developers about possibilities like this?
I'm not fully aware of like an affordable housing developer kind of listserv per se, but we have over the years, I mean, Doug has a list of developers that have at least, queried us about potential sites or options in the city, and we keep a list of those developers. So we have like, I don't know how many people are on it, but we have a solid list of people that we can directly reach out to who have had interest in Newberg in the past, but I'm not personally aware of like a listserv anywhere of just affordable housing developers.
Well, and I guess I'm not opposed to putting it out in places that haven't usually been hotbeds of affordable housing, but maybe if people see, oh, here's an option that I could do something, where I don't, where I'm not usually feeling like affordable housing stuff is in my wheelhouse because it hasn't been, it doesn't pencil out or something.
Yeah.
But I see,
Yeah.
oh, this is something that's available. Maybe I want to do it even though I've never shown an interest before. So that would be my only thing, is if it goes out a little wider so that people that maybe could be drawn into affordable housing work that never have been.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be, the goal with this is hopefully that these funds kind of make developers who haven't done something like this before, because they just haven't been able to pencil out, like especially market rate developers. That'd be great. Yeah.
I was thinking, like, of course, like trade shows and stuff would be something that might hit those marks, because if anybody's discussing possibly doing something like that, it's probably the contractors discussing it with the people that want to do things. But beyond that, even people that you might not think have relatives or whoever, and doing it at somewhere like having a small informational thing at the Old Fashioned Festival, for instance, here in town, or something like that, where regular community members see it and then can suggest to whoever and let them know about it. So
Mhm. Yeah, even like a city booth in general, talking about like city projects or programs or things that we have. Usually it's a good idea at some of those community
Melissa and
events.
then Casey, I think, had both have their hand up, so.
Yeah.
So there is a industry organization called Housing Oregon, and I don't attend those meetings, but they do have a resources page that does announce funding availability for affordable housing. So that could pique some interest.
Perfect, thanks.
Is there some kind of like a subscription, like an email subscription that either residents or businesses or even nonprofits could say, you know, I'd like to receive emails related to housing in Newberg? Does that currently exist?
I do have, it's more for like general updates on housing in Newberg, which would include probably notices of, you know, these funds and things going out. So it is on the web page, like the home web page of housing. But I can make it more clear that you could sign up there and get notices of like funding on it as well. Yeah, that's a good idea. Anything else? And you can always email me too if you think of stuff after the fact. Okay. All right. So then final step is we ask that you all make a motion, and you'll make the motion with the suggested
correction.
edits. Yeah, yeah. And then that'll move us on to city council, and then hopefully we'll get it to them in December. Not hopefully, we will get it to them in December. So yeah.
Somebody want to get on record as making the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it with the added edit there to the city council.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
We have seconds and thirds. All right. Any other discussion? Anything before we vote? All right. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand or both or whatever you want to do. Thank you. That's unanimous. Excellent. That's been a long time coming. So looking forward to this actually getting out there and maybe making a difference.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be great. And then the only other thing I had was just a quick update on the notice of funding application for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And it's actually quite unique that we'll have two funds for affordable housing projects. So it's good. That's good for us. But so the applications close on the 30th of this month, and we have one application so far, a completed application. So that's good. We have at least one. And that's all I have on that though.
Okay.
Any questions on that process or yeah?
I just had a thought when you said we're kind of unique in the fact that we have two of them. Can a developer apply for both?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we let's see on the, let me see if I can pull up the packet here. Yeah, I added in the application form. You can, let's see if I can share my screen here. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is the draft application form, and I did add if you'll be requesting funds for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. That just helps us so we know, but it's not meaning that if you have, you're not eligible for CET funds as well. So it's just kind of extra data on our end, but yeah, you can absolutely do both. Any other questions? Okay.
So does that bring us to the end of our agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Nice. Good work. So again,
That was-
next meeting,
the
January
28th.
24th. And
Are we gonna continue to have them at 4 o'clock? Is that the plan?
I believe so. Would there
Okay.
be better times or is 4 still good for everyone?
I mean, 4 is probably as good as I'm gonna get. I still have to leave work early, but not as early as I used to have to leave work, so
Right.
it's nice.
Okay.
has there, I mean, I'm just asking the question. I'm not pushing for one way or the other. Has there been consideration of these groups meeting in person again, or is it really working better to be Zoom?
I can answer that question. Yes, we're working to get you back in person. Your meetings are on Tuesdays. And so court is held at the Public Safety Building, which has all of the technology to do the hybrid meetings. Library offered up the Austin room, but it doesn't have, to my understanding, have all the technology to do the hybrid. If you want to do Zoom and in person. Our small conference room here at City Hall doesn't have that technology, but it doesn't mean when you have a hybrid meeting that it has to be using Zoom. It's convenient. People have done it now for 2.5 years. You could theoretically, and I'd have to talk with the city recorder again, but we could have a conference call number that people could call in and put the star phone in the middle of the table, and that allows people to be able to listen to the meeting. We always have a public comment section. So yes, we are working to try to get you back in person.
Okay. And like I said, I'm not pushing for that. I mean, I know for some, it's definitely convenient to be wherever you are and be able to do it too. So, all right. Well, unless there's other business, let's be adjourned. Do we have to vote on that, or do we just do it?
That's what I was gonna say. Do I have to make a motion that we're done, or
Typically, we in the past have had a motion to adjourn in a
Okay.
second.
All right.
motion to adjourn then?
Okay. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good
Bye,
to
guys.
see you. Good to get this done. Thank you.